Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to get a basic true metal metallic effect. If you're not familiar with it, it's where you use paints to create the illusion of a reflective metal surface. This is a fairly advanced technique, and I would definitely not call myself an expert yet, since I'm still learning more and better ways to achieve this effect. However, I can share with you the basics of this technique. So to start out, I'm laying out all the colors I'll need, the first being a neutral flat gray, and for this I'm going to be using Mechanicus standard gray. From there, you can either darken your gray with a series of additions of black paint, or you can do what I'm doing and choose a dark color like blue or a bluish green instead of dark gray, and then add black to that. I'll have a full listing of the paints I'm using in just a minute. If you don't want any color added to your TMM effect, then you could use just a mid-tone silver as your middle color, and then progressively darken it with black, and then use a very bright silver as your brightest color. This is exactly what I did with the axe on my Minotaur. I posted this video on Watch It Painted, and I'll leave a link to that if you want to see it. After I have all my colors on my palette, I'm then adding a bit of water to each one to thin it down to a glaze. Now this picture is a bit different, but it's the exact same colors, though I did add some shining silver to the bright end. The next color is Plate Mail Steel, followed by Plate Mail mixed with Mechanicus Standard Gray. Next is Pure Mechanicus Standard Gray, and then Stegadon Scale Green and Mechanicus mixed together. Then Pure Stegadon Scale Green, and finally Stegadon mixed with Abaddon Black. Now you usually see painters blending all their colors together like this on their wet palette, so you can get a full range of colors from light to dark, but I highly recommend you do not do this when first starting. First of all, it's hard to duplicate this if you either run out of paint or you want to stop and continue the next day. You're better off having each color separate in the beginning. So on to the painting. The first step is to take your gray and mark out the areas of light and dark on your metal surface. I'm going with something simple where I only have 3 areas of dark and 3 light. The gray is where my dark areas will be centered. Now I'm taking the next lightest color and marking the light areas. Now I'm taking some of the blue-gray and darkening the center of the dark areas. Then I'm just working out from the middle, adding successively darker colors to the shadow and lighter colors to the light. This first little bit is really just roughly sketching in the shadows. It's going to look like crap at first, but that's okay. You're just getting a feel for how you want it to look. Here's a progress pic so far. As you can see, I have 3 areas of dark and 3 light mapped out on the blade. So my steps right now are add a small amount of paint, and then you'll see my brush go off camera. This is me rinsing off the brush and dabbing off the excess water. Then I come back with a damp brush and roughly wet blend my color into the one next to it. Now that I have my light and dark areas mapped out, I'm going to go through each of the 7 colors from darkest to lightest. I'll add some of the darkest color to the very center of the shadowed area, then rinse off my brush. I'll come back with a damp brush and just feather out the edges a bit. Get the next darkest color on your brush and move slightly further down the blade and do the same thing. So here's how it looks now. One thing to note is that you want the darkest part of your shadow to match up with the lightest part of your light area. And similarly, the areas where your dark and light fade into gray should also match up. I have my regions of dark and light lined up the way I want, so the next step is to further darken the shadowed areas and blend that shadow outward. You never want your shadows to ever get to full black, but you can get pretty close. At full black, it kind of shatters the illusion. Okay, I'm going to speed this up to 8 times normal speed. I'm going to go through all 7 colors again, and I'm trying to smooth out the transitions between each color with repeated wet blending. Here's another progress picture, and as you can see, the darks are a bit darker, the light is a bit lighter, and the colors blend a little better. This is now just a process of repetition until you have nice, smooth transitions of color. Once again, I'll ramp up the speed so you can see the entire process without getting too bored. I'm now working on getting the center of my shadowed area close to black. I'm now using a very small brush, and I'm using tiny amounts of paint. I'm basically just fine-tuning everything at this point and trying to get a really smooth flow of color. So now this is the final stage of the process. I'm just adding one final accentuation of color to the lightest and darkest areas. Now I'm using some pure shining silver, which was my brightest color, and I'm adding an edge highlight to the entire length of the blade. You want this edge highlight to be very thin and of the same width the whole way. Mine wasn't perfect and I had to go back and do a little touch-up after. I'm also going to add a thin edge highlight down the center ridge of the blade. So just a little touch-up and that is that. My goal was to create a green reflection from the cloak onto the blade using a true metal metallic effect. Not perfect and not overly complex, but I think it looks better than just plain steel. It should be noted that this took roughly an hour to do, so if you don't want to spend an hour painting one sword, non-metal and true metal metallics might not be what you want to do. Regardless, let me know what you think in the comments section. Thank you very much to my patrons for supporting the creation of these videos. If you want to see a full guide for the painting of the were-tiger, there's a PDF available for patrons on my Patreon site, which you can subscribe to for as little as $1. I hope you found this video useful, or at least interesting, and thank you very much for watching.